Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eli, the only podcast in India where we bring a new founder on every episode to talk about their journey and their story of building a company. And today we have with us Anand, who is the founder of Ignite Solutions, which is a software development firm based out of Pune. Hi, Anand. Welcome to Eli.
Hi, Priya Ranjan. Pleasure to be here talking with you and your audience. Thank you for this opportunity.
To start with, Anand, would request you to introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a bit about
Sure.
your background. Where did you study? Where did you grow up? In fact, and how did entrepreneurship come to you?
Sounds good. Okay. So, I've been in this industry now 33 plus years. Let me kind of do a intro of what I'm doing right now and then work backwards into how I
Sure.
got here.
Yes.
So I run this company called Ignite Solutions. We're based out of Pune. Our clientele is mainly in the USA. And Ignite Solutions is a professional services company focusing on product development. Um, we are morphing. We were focused primarily on a startup client base. We're trying to expand that. But
Mhm.
essentially, we are a one-stop shop for companies looking to do product development. We can provide CTO as a service. We can provide design. We provide,
Mhm.
of course, development. We provide, ongoing retainership. We can just be your tech team entirely. We work in various models and it's kind of flexible. About a
Mhm.
year and a half ago, we embarked on creating a product which is in the AI space. It's called Chhatur G. So this is a business
Mhm.
division of Ignite Solutions. Chhatur G is a startup product. It's kind of trying to make teamwork and collaboration using AI more effective, especially for the small and mid businesses. So
Mhm.
its focus is really on how can I enable teams to collaborate and create knowledge as well as obtain knowledge with AI as one of the team members, as opposed to the typical flow, which is AI is your personal assistant sitting somewhere quietly behind the scene and providing
Mhm.
you information, and then you work with teams yourself, right? So we are trying to change the model out there, and we are finding some good success on that. But it is an early stage startup, so we have a long journey to go.
Good.
In terms of background, I I studied in the University of Pune. I did my master in computer science out here, and
Mhm.
then went to the US to Rutgers University, enrolled in a PhD program, but I ended up just doing a master's out there too.
Mhm.
And since then, with kind of a dual master's degree, I joined a startup, which was, I would say, it was an opportunity because it was building distributed computing platforms way before any of the ones that we are commonly using now, even before the internet as we know it, or rather the web
Mhm.
as we know it came about. So it had its own standard of APIs and objects, and creating network of objects and all across the net. And So that was an opportunity because I got to work with a lot of very interesting people, a lot of clarity on building large systems and distributed computing and how systems scale and what are the pitfalls out there.
Mhm.
This company was also a startup. It kind of went through a cycle. After a few years, we all realized it's not going to make it. And I said, okay, what next? So instead of continuing down the traditional path of just working again in a similar firm, I said, let me
Mhm.
get some first-hand exposure to front end of consulting, right? What would it mean to consult to a Fortune 500 company and guide CXO level people in both technology but in other fields also. So I joined a consulting company that focused on that. It was a boutique consulting company called LDS, Logical Design
Mhm.
Solutions.
Mhm.
And I joined as an architect, software architect, but eventually rose to become Senior Vice President of Strategic Alliances as well as CTO. And
Mhm.
I got a lot of exposure to running a consulting business, a lot of exposure to user experience. This was a company where UX was an important thing. and also exposure to working with clients who are C-level people at large companies, right? Very different from the startup space. But I
Mhm.
think that rounded out what, kind of two sides of what makes the IT industry tick. Around that time, I was kind of thinking about doing something off on my own, and I also wanted to return to India. I was living in the US for about 15 years at that point, and I said,
Mhm.
let me go back. We chose Pune because I was familiar with it. It's close enough to Mumbai, but it's not Mumbai. Getting back into Mumbai is a challenge. Um,
Mhm.
and that's where we started Ignite Solutions. Initially, it was a product company working in
Mhm.
um, working in a totally different industry of entertainment, right? So it was kind of two-screen entertainment. You can watch the TV, but your mobile would listen to what you're watching and figure it out and start giving you additional content. You could play along, or you could get camera angles or things of that nature.
Mhm.
I mean, needless to say, we worked that. We got a lot of exposure. Again, in the US, we went to integrated with all the large cable companies, Comcast, Time Warner. We sold
Mhm.
something to a large company called Cox Communications, but eventually it wasn't going anywhere. We were sitting in India trying to sell to the US. We tried to sell in India. It was kind of early days of digital in India,
Mhm.
2013 timeframe. So we decided to fold it up, and as part of that fold up, our option was just close the company, right? Like we were out of money. I'd put in a lot of my personal money in it. We could just close the company, but we said we enjoyed doing what we do. We enjoyed solving problems. We enjoyed kind of building things that would pivot and be extensible and be scalable,
Mhm.
and think about tomorrow's architecture today. And
Mhm.
we enjoyed building things with a great user experience. And we said, if we are doing this and this is something we feel is critical, can we package this as a service, right? And that's the kernel of what Ignite Solutions does today, which is we
Okay.
package that, we started offering that to startups, and we've got some surprisingly good response. We've been with companies now for 8-9 years as their
Sure.
tech team and tech partners. And of course, so that's the business that has grown. And
Mhm.
then we had a product DNA. So we kept trying different products. We have another product called Books Plus, which is to add interactivity to printed books. We've
Mhm.
got a few titles on that. We tried our hand at a museum app to make museum going a better experience. The app was great. We just weren't focused enough to sell it. So that's still a concept we can take forward. But meanwhile, the AI wave came, and we started using AI internally. And we started seeing a lot of problems as we tried to use it as teams, right? I mean,
Mhm.
individually, it was great. We could use any of the AIs. But when we started to work with teams in early days, you had to copy paste stuff into Google Docs, and then somebody else would overwrite it, and it was a mess. Um, so that's the kernel of the idea for Chaturji. And so right now we have Chaturji as a startup. We are hoping to make that big. And
Mhm.
Ignite Solutions as the mothership, which is kind of continuing to fund the startup, and also, allowing us to work with a lot of different technologies with other companies.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thanks for setting the context, and we'll now go deep into whatever we just discussed. And one trending topic right now is AI, and everybody just talking about how AI will replace jobs, how AI will be used by every other company out there. In fact, I am seeing AI is being used as a marketing gimmick by a lot of companies. AI into washing machine, AI into fridge. I recently did a LinkedIn post about that. Uh, but if you ask me, there is a lot of overhype about it. Yes, AI is solving some real use cases, but not as much as how people are talking about. Maybe after 10 years, it will come there, maybe not. But you, being a technocrat, over 30 years of experience, you have been working on technologies even when internet was not there. You were building APIs then. Um, how would you see AI as a wave? Like you rightly mentioned, it's a wave. Wave comes and goes, right? How do you foresee and how do you perceive AI?
So that's a, interesting question. Clearly, a lot of people have opinions. You will read everywhere that AI is going to take your job, or some people saying, no, no, AI won't take your job. Only people who know how to use AI will have jobs. And, there's a lot of kind of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? If you use that. Um, the way I look at it is we have to use AI, right? Like there's no going back. This is not a wave like you know, uh, uh,
It is
some
safe.
other, blockchain or NFTs or things of that nature, which came as this big wave. The foundational technology sound, but it then became kind of a little bubble somewhere as opposed to a big wave, right?
Mm.
AI certainly. I mean, what we are doing. We are of course building an AI platform, but we are continually trying to get our teams to use AI. uh, the hype factor clearly is there, right? So we hear and read a lot about there is this one person company who's getting acquired because that one person using AI was able to build all kinds of things and market it and everything. I'd really like to understand how that is happening. Like we don't, I mean, unless it's some super simple stuff, we don't see that today.
Mm.
But that's not to say it's not going to happen, right? So the the way to think about AI is it is absolutely here, and we
Mm-hmm.
really, I mean, as individuals and as enterprises or companies or organizations, we really need to embrace it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually finding that there is a fair amount of resistance from wholeheartedly embracing it. What I mean by that is everybody uses Chaturji or ChatGPT or whatever your favorite AI is. That is not, it's not a resistance to use it, but to say, can I actually stop doing 50% of what I'm doing and let the AI do it is not a thought that most people embrace.
Mm.
And I feel we should do that. Like I absolutely feel we should do that. In fact, part of our internal programs are to figure out systematic ways that we can use AI. Um, be it in coding, be it in marketing, be it in HR, be it in anything, right? So we've
Mm.
actually seen success with our HR team producing some apps for training or for certain kind of processes that they've built apps using AI tools, and it's fantastic, right? They used to otherwise have to wait for somebody on the tech team to be able to do that and all.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to look at AI is, and I don't have a great answer, but really the patterns that I see is a lot of professions were, the skill was really pattern matching, right? If you, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just for the sake of argument, if you say you go to a medical professional like a doctor, right? What the doctor has is through their years of study gained an
Right.
certain amount of knowledge, but through the years of experience, they are excellent at pattern matching, right? You go and say, look, I have a nose, my nose is running, but my head is also paining and my water is coming out of my eyes or something. And they are able to pattern match to say, I have seen these patterns before. And
Mm.
hence, I'm going to try this method of treatment. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to try this other. And that's the diagnosis, right? Now, AI is excellent at stuff like that. Like if you say pattern matching, that's what it does. If you say,
Mm-hmm.
give me a body of knowledge and train me on it, AI does that, right? So now this highly skilled profession, I feel, is in jeopardy. That's not to say doctors will disappear,
Mm-hmm.
but really, I'm just trying to look at it from a programmatic approach. Where all are we kind of just doing pattern matching based off experience and based off knowledge? And AI can kind of come in there, right? And it can become an assistant, but eventually it will take over. Another thing you said, 10 years from now, will it become what people are saying? I feel we should embrace this concept of exponential growth, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you say ChatGPT came out, what, 2.5 years ago, that was version 3, 3.5.
Right.
You know, about every 6 months, people are releasing something that has double the capability, roughly speaking,
Mm.
maybe four times the capability, right? So if you say, look, I'm going to double every 6 months, or I'm going to become four times as good every 6 months, right? The 3.5 became or rather 3 became 3.5, 3.5 became 4, 4 has now become O3, and they're continuing to
Mm-hmm.
add more and more. So if you say I'm going to become, let's say, double every 6 months, that means 4 times as good in a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 16 times as good in 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see where I'm going, right? It's
Right.
256 times as good in 3 years. Like, we human beings can't comprehend this, right?
Right.
So it's not going to take us 10 years. It is going to take us just maybe 2, 3, 4 years for these things to actually start delivering some of the hype that is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 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 feeling that the more we embrace it and the more we kind of jump into the river that is flowing very fast, the
Mm-hmm.
better off we'll be. I mean, we can stand on the shore and say, let the river kind of become slow before I jump in. But the people who have jumped in, they might have got some bruises and all, but they will be far ahead of the game. Right? So that's kind of
Got
my
it.
take on it.
There is some law around it, like Moore's law, if I remember correctly. So computing power will be
Doubling, yeah.
doubling every year.
Yeah,
Um,
Moore's law was every 18 months, the number of transistors on a chip doubles, right? And we are reaching kind of the end of it because we are going to hit the subatomic level soon.
okay.
But I mean, I don't know if AI has a law yet, but if you just look at the data, that's what's happening.
Hmm. Critical question here is AI will keep on getting faster, more effective, uh, more reasoning capabilities, but humans are not built in a way to double their capabilities or skill sets every year. Uh, so so this require, like you rightly mentioned, you gave the reverse example. The river speed is changing very frequently and doubling every year, and that also means you need to upskill your game every year in a exponential rate, like you rightly mentioned. But is that humanly possible, and how humans should go about it?
I mean, that is a superb question. I find, if I just talk about myself also, right? We are all carrying a level of anxiety within us because things are changing so fast, right? I mean, I'm in the AI space. I have an AI product, so it affects me implicitly. If ChatGPT announces something or Claude announces something, they might have absorbed what I'm trying to do, right? I had a layer of intelligence on top of them, or do something different. Uh, but it's such a fast moving area that there is a inherent level of anxiety that all of us, irrespective of the profession, are likely to have. Right? That things are
Mhm.
going to change, right? Whether you are a social media influencer, or you are a content creator, or you are a technologist, or you are like I said, a doctor, right?
Mm.
Things are absolutely going to change. But if you see the uptake, like if you go into you know second tier city in the US or second tier city in India, and you
Mhm.
say, how many companies are using AI in a systematic manner, right? I mean, it's okay that you are writing your email using ChatGPT or Gemini or something, that is fine. But in a systematic manner, how many of them have already replaced what they are doing or enhanced what they're doing with AI? That number is quite small. And that
That's
is
right.
where this market adoption of some of these things is kind of slowing down the uptake.
Mm.
Uh, However, that's not to say there won't be kind of step changes, right? Suddenly we leapfrog, kind of like introduction of mobile phones, leapfrog India from
Yes.
no communication to 100% communication, right? Like there was, uh, I feel those will come. Like people will just suddenly figure out that they don't need to go through these old channels at all, right? So it is
Mm.
not a matter of optimizing the old channels. It's just a matter of new ways of doing stuff that are super simple and super, I would say, um, friendly to lay people, but they will come. And then suddenly you will find that entire functions kind of start getting decimated, right? Like people just start doing things differently. Um, like today, we don't have secretaries to type in our letters. We do it
Mm.
ourselves. I mean, that
Right.
that took many years, right? Earlier offices, there were all these stenographers and all who used to dictate and then they type.
Yes.
I feel that that is a step change, but it took many years. Here it's going to be instantaneous. I don't have a great answer of what exactly that new world looks like, but I think we should be prepared that there is a different future of work, and a
Mm.
different future of maybe life also, where
Mm-hmm.
AI is kind of constantly helping us, right? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel there's a lot of, I'm calling it anxiety, but possibly a lot of pain that goes along with it, because people will take time to retool themselves to,
Mm-hmm.
become useful in this new economy.
Got it. I think there is a fundamental flaw in this whole AI versus human debate. AI will replace jobs, it will take away jobs. But if you think, if you watch it closely, it's you are not competing against AI in any particular job. You are competing against other humans. Let's say uh, one job was requiring 10 people now it will require three, probably two people to do that
Yeah.
job. The other eight people will reinvent themselves. They'll find out new technologies to work on, or maybe something what AI cannot do, for example plumbing or gardening. These are the things are only humanly possible. AI cannot do that. Probably those jobs will become more lucrative. Right now,
Sure.
it's not. So I think that's how the transition will happen. It's never about AI will replace humans will always find new things to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel, I mean, this has been true in my experience, that common sense and smart thinking are rare commodities. People
Hmm.
who have that will thrive no matter what the environment, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, I stepping aside from the AI topic, I feel that is true even in business world. That if you have the smarts and if you can apply it in a clever way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what your training is and what your academic background is, you will rise. And we have examples of people, with
Yes.
no training rising to really high levels, right? So
Yes. Okay, so coming back to the AI as a core technology, like you rightly mentioned, it's pretty good at pattern matching. But what I have observed over the year, I have been using AI quite actively, and I think the common sense aspect, or what you would in business sense, what you would say that it's first principle, or whenever there is no pattern to look at, it's just a new problem statement, then AI fails uh, badly. I think there was some company which was testing AI on giving it a very high level problem, and AI solves that. But sometimes it fails at very dumb problems. But AI is not able to do that because it has never seen that pattern before. So it's a new problem I have created, and it's pretty simple, but AI is not able to solve that because there is no training data on that. What would you say on
possibly,
that?
possibly. Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely true. However, I feel we can still use AI in circumstances like that, right? Like I would say, you know, I feel it is at the current stage, or maybe even the near future stage, thinking that AI will do your work for you is not a good attitude or an
Hmm.
assumption, right? But to say AI will help me do my work, it
Yes.
it does, even for places where it doesn't have the actual answer, right? So for instance, let's say you are trying to identify a molecule that will go and attack a cancer cell, right? I mean, I'm using that very flippantly, not that I'm an expert on that, but to say
Hmm.
that that's a fairly high-end research area where we don't have the answer, right? There is
Hmm.
no prior art on which AI can base its thing. However, if you say, look, this is the class of problem I'm trying to solve, and help me brainstorm with me as to what are the various approaches I can do, right?
Right.
That it will do a fantastic job. You are still doing the work, but what it is doing is it is helping you clarify, it is helping you break things down, it might help you actually focus on some things. uh, and I'll kind of go back a little bit to you know engineering education. Right? Why
Mm,
why engineering, and why are so many engineers who eventually might or might not have become, engineers by profession? They might be running companies or doing marketing or things like that. It's because the 4 years you go through engineering college, it teaches you the method to attack problems as much as it teaches you the knowledge, right? The knowledge is not what you end up using most times, right? I mean, I think there is some people who use calculus after 4 years of engineering is some minuscule percentage, right? People don't do
mm,
that. But the method of applying yourself to break down problems, to think about them with critical thinking, to observe the data, to infer. And this is where, again, I feel AI can help you, right? So
mhm,
it depends on how you end up using AI. If you say, go solve this problem, it will come back with probably substandard results. But if you say, work with me and help me, this is where I am, you know,
mm.
be my guide or help break me down, do some critical thinking along with me, be my partner.
Okay.
There it will shine, and it will actually give you the tools to go solve the problem yourself. And in fact, Chaturji, when we say we want to make AI a collaborative teammate, that's what we are trying to do, right? We don't want it
Mhm.
to come up with the answer. We want it to help people come up with the right answer through the use of AI.
Got it. Let's talk about Chaturji in detail. First, tell us what is the hypothesis behind the naming Chatur G. The way I
Yeah.
see it, and like you mentioned earlier, I imagine it would be a AI agent, which should probably come up with the intelligent answers. Like you have that guy in every team who would be who would be a genius at everything and will be ahead of everybody else. So, is it something like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it is, I mean, you kind of hit it on the head. The way we think about it is, if you I mean, firstly, there is a play on the name with the word chat in it, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so the Chat GPT came out, and chat. There were a lot of chat related things, right? But
Right.
the idea was you're going to chat with it. It's a tool that is going to help chat. But really, the idea was, hey, I want somebody who is kind of like my, you know, secret superpower, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't want this person necessarily to be doing all the work. I don't want this person. It's like if you think about you know you're running a kingdom or you're running a country. You have
Mm-hmm.
this team like the bureaucrats and the prime minister's office and things of that nature who are really intelligent, and they can solve specific problems. But then you are the one making the decision, and you're kind of using your
Mm-hmm.
intuition and going forward. So,
Got it.
that's why we came up with this word G, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's manifestation of a human being who is Chatur, who's
Mm-hmm.
also chat, but it is there to help you as opposed to kind of replace you, right? That was the idea. We also came up with we have a character mascot. If you go to the Chaturji website, and we
Mm-hmm.
wanted this character mascot to be kind of like this. Assistant type person, but really smart. We wanted it to look like kind of a young Einstein type thing. I mean, we played around with it. We asked our user experience team to brainstorm around this,
Mm-hmm.
and we came up with this mascot
Right.
that's kind of like this funky, likable, helpful guy who's going to be there, and they're going to help you
Mm-hmm.
with anything and everything that you need, right? So that you got it right in terms of why we called it Chaturji.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and respected person, but also a helper.
Got it. And I think you are using multiple models. On top of that, you have built the product. Help me understand, how do you sort of combine models together? There is Chat GPT, Cloud, Gemini. Cloud is good at coding. Gemini is probably good at reasoning, and Chat GPT. How do you merge them together? Because I am a product person myself. I have seen the struggle of combining models together at one of the earlier companies.
Yeah.
Uh, and interestingly, when you combine things together, sometimes it will produce intelligent results, but more often than not, it will mix up things and come up with simply garbage. How do you go about
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. So it's an agentic approach. The way we do it is when you first ask the question, uh, we have a inbuilt agent that is actually reasoning about what it is that you are asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then based off that, we are using the power of AI itself to take that reasoning and then decide which is the best model that will
Mm-hmm.
be best suited. Like, so if it is a coding kind of question, you're right, we might go to Claude, right? If it is a reasoning type of question, we might go to one of the O3 or even Claude reasoning models. If it is something else, we might go to Gemini. If it's something else, we might go to Grok, right? So uh,
Mm-hmm.
what we are trying to do is to balance the speed, the cost, and the value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is what our inbuilt agent is doing to say, look, you have asked this question. Should I optimize for speed? Should I optimize for cost? Should I optimize for the kind of output you want? And
Mm-hmm.
depending on that, we ask the question. Now, when we take this answer and you ask the next question, we provide this as context, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the next AI kind of knows what has gone on and it bases its answer based on what you have already learned, right? So that's why how we try and minimize kind of the total garbage that sometimes gets produced.
Mm-hmm.
And also part of the agentic flow is that we observe what has come back, and again, it's an AI that tries to determine, is this answering the right question or is it doing something different? If it's doing
Got
something
it.
different, then we choose a different model and go with it, right? So it's a little intelligence we have built out there
Mm-hmm.
around answering that.
Got it. And who is it built for? Like, what kind of a company would use it? And inside company, there are multiple teams. Is it built for everybody or a certain
Yeah.
type of people?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what you see on the website right now is still kind of an older version of what we have live. We have
Mm-hmm.
so what we are saying is, look, this thing will work with companies where knowledge work is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are a small company which is doing some kind of knowledge work, you are an agency, for instance, or a consulting company. You might be a non-profit. You might be just a small company where there are different teams, and some of the teams need some knowledge work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or you might be a department of a large company.
Mm-hmm.
Then this is a product that is worthwhile for you. We are
Mm-hmm.
not focused that much on large companies en masse. I mean, the whole company starts using it. Partly from a go-to-market perspective, we don't think we are ready for that. Right? I think the
Okay.
product is possibly ready for that, but we are not sure if a large company comes to us, I'm sure they will come with a whole bunch of requirements, and they will almost become a tech team supporting that company's specific needs. And so we are
Mm-hmm.
saying from a go to market perspective, we want to look at companies between 5 people to 200 people, which
Mm-hmm.
have these criteria that knowledge work is important, or at least they have some teams where knowledge work is important. Inter-team collaboration is important, right? I'm going to produce something which another team is going to use and go ahead and do with it. Like I'm going to produce a strategy, and my marketing team will need access to that strategy document, and then they are going to work on it and come up with a marketing strategy. And then my actual digital marketing execution team will look at that strategy and come up with a content calendar, and then my individuals will look at it and then produce all the posts and social media or SEM stuff that will kind of go with that. So there is a flow, right? And the flow is a
Mm-hmm.
knowledge flow until you get to the very end where somebody goes and does something in the real world, right? So
Okay.
we can think of it that way. We can think of consulting companies where every client project is a new project, and we want to we want the AI to know all of this, right? So the idea is that we have rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
within the rooms, the AI knows everything pertinent to that room. So think of it as you walked into a conference room, and all the whiteboards have your information, your shelves have the outputs you have produced, you have drafting tools or other tools to get work done. You do the
Mm-hmm.
work, and then it's put back as residual value, and which can get handed off to later teams. And the
Got it.
fact is, once you enter the room, it's as if you already have all the knowledge that the room has, right? So the
Hmm.
AI knows that you can just go and ask a question saying, look, in this meeting we had discussed this, so how do we move forward on it? And you don't have to
Hmm.
give it a lot of context. That's the idea. So each room,
Hmm.
you can have as many rooms as you want, right? So
Got it.
you might have one room per podcast interviewee, where you have kind of
Hmm.
assimilated information, maybe conversations, maybe emails, and maybe some websites. And now you can say, okay, I want to ask questions about this. Maybe on a follow-up call, maybe you can have more information, but you don't have to feed all of that to the AI. The AI is already trained on it. You go to a
Hmm.
different room, it's trained on different stuff, right? Your own personal marketing could be, your strategy is there, and you don't have to. So that was part of the thing that we are trying to do. Consulting companies are
Understood.
great, agencies are great, NGOs are great, small companies with having a knowledge need is great.
Got it. Uh, Really interesting analogy about the room. Um, Follow-up question on that. So since you target to knowledge workers and knowledge based companies, uh, the big concern that comes is about data security. I think we have seen this when people would simply upload RFPs to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will retain all that data forever with it. And that compromises data security for the company, data sovereignty for a country altogether. Uh, Sensitive data like Aadhaar cards being uploaded to ChatGPT. How do you go about it? Because I have seen companies at a global level are struggling with this. Even OpenAI is trained on data that is not permitted to use by ChatGPT or OpenAI. I think they're feeding data from Twitter, from YouTube, and so on, without taking any consent. So, how do you go about data security in your products?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there's multiple levels of security, right? One is, let's take this concept of a room. I'm going to upload, let's say, in a company, I have the strategy room and then I have the sales room. I don't want the salespeople to look at the strategy documents, right?
Yes.
So the room itself is a boundary of security. Things that go in a room are secure within the room, and we manage that. So that is part of our infrastructure. It's not a chat GPT infrastructure or something.
Hmm.
So we have boundaries out there, that data is stored in an encrypted form. We have access control, so only certain people can get access to it. Over the wire, it is all encrypted. Then the next layer of security or privacy is what part of this data is going to an LLM, right?
Hmm.
And we don't have our own LLM. I mean, we have some simple LLMs we use for some of this reasoning and all. But the real question that you ask, we are sending it to one of these models, right? Uh, and partly we have done that contractually, right?
Hmm.
Based off our contract with OpenAI or with Anthropic, we have it in writing that they will not use the data we transmit to them for training purposes. Right?
Hmm.
Uh, we are only working with models that have that, right? I mean, some of these Chinese models, actually, we go through the legal terms, and if they don't have those protections, we don't bring them on, right?
Hmm.
So you won't see any of the Chinese LLMs as yet, because their contractual terms about privacy, they are not being very black and white about, are they going to use this data to train or not, right?
Hmm.
So so contractually, we are safeguarded by saying, look, if you ask a question to Chaturji, and Chaturji is going to send that question over to, let's say, ChatGPT, and as part of the question you had said, look, this is my sales data from the last 3 years, right? And now tell me, forecast me what's going to happen next, right? Of
Right.
course that data is going to go to an LLM, right?
Yes.
But the challenge is, will the LLM use that to train itself on your business secrets or anything like that? So contractually we are protected, and we are
Hmm.
also protected by not sending the entire data to the LLM, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we figure out what part of data that you have uploaded to us is required to answer this question. There's a
Mm-hmm.
technique called RAG, and we kind of go through that and figure it out and say, you've uploaded maybe 500 megabytes of data. I don't need to send the 500 megabytes to answer this question. I need to send only those pieces which will help give the context for that. So we kind of curtail the amount of data we send to the LLM from what you have uploaded to us, only
Mm-hmm.
to what is required. But you're right. I mean, at some level, we are relying on the LLM's contractual agreement with us to say we are not going to train this, right? If behind the scenes they're doing something, hanky panky, then we have a challenge. But that is not what. And these are large companies and respected companies, so we are kind of adhering to that. We adhere to our side, and we encrypt your data. We keep it secure, and we make sure that nobody else other than you will have access to it.
Got it. And here is my final question. I know we spend a lot of time into AI, but in general, being a technocrat, uh, how do you foresee the future about technology, and how would you advise other entrepreneurs who are listening to us to go about technology in general?
So I feel from an entrepreneurship perspective, it's important that you validate your idea first, right? Because things are changing rapidly, and even things that were true 6 months ago may not be true anymore, right? Uh, Specifically from a technology perspective, I feel it's a great time, right? You have tools
Mm-hmm.
that can do a lot of the mundane work that programmers used to do. I mean, I grew up programming, so I enjoy part of that mundaneness. It gives me
Mm-hmm.
kind of a therapeutic feel. I still write programs. But if you actually think about it, lots and lots of the time spent programming is doing work that is not intellectually, I would say, smart work. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I can get a tool that does a bunch of this, then I elevated myself into actually thinking about real problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great time because you get somebody to do that mundane work for at a really low cost relatively, and you get the speed of what a programmer would have taken a week. You can maybe get in 4 or 5 hours of working with these tools. So now, as a technologist, your challenge is what can you do with this power, right? If your market differentiation was that technology which most people don't, and hence you are better, that differentiation is going away, right? I told you
Mm-hmm.
my HR people have started writing some simple apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't need to rely on the technologists, right? So the value proposition that a technologist is bringing to the table is changing, right? And I would say technology entrepreneurs have to really value that and think about where am I going to add value, right? At the
Mm-hmm.
same token, there's vast areas that are not served. I mean, we are picking one which is saying small and mid businesses are as per our knowledge, not able to exploit AI to its maximum. We want to help them. But if
Mm-hmm.
you go to tier two, tier three cities, there are other problems, right?
Right.
That maybe you can unearth and then say, can I bring the power of technology to for farmers or for traders in a tier three city or something like that? I don't have, I mean, that's not my forte, so I don't have actual problems I can identify.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But just saying I'm going to build a better Instagram or a better, Zoho,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because Zoho is also going to be doing that, right?
Right.
So you have to think about, can I change the game? Somehow,
Mm-hmm.
can I make it so that, fundamentally people are getting access to information they did not have or being able to do stuff that they did not have? And is there a value proposition out there? I mean, it's a great time, but at the same time, it is kind of a time where a lot of thought needs to go in there.
Yeah. And should entrepreneurs think differently about hiring? I think the same logic applies like we discussed about the jobs being taken away by AI. The same applies to the other side of the board. You don't need as many coders as you used to need. Not as many HR people. So one HR person can do the recruitment using AI for shortlisting resumes, for interviewing candidate. I think AI avatars are now interviewing candidates. So lot of these things can be automated. You don't need as many uh, IT team, operation team. A lot of marketing can be automated. You can deploy AI content writers and so on. So how do you think people, entrepreneurs should go about hiring in a modern day setup where AI is already there?
That's a really, insightful thing. I feel, um, firstly, as an entrepreneur, you want to do the most for the least, right? That is,
Right.
I mean, most entrepreneurs do not have a big fat bank balance that they can just.
Yeah.
So even in earlier days before AI came, you wouldn't hire the HR person until you needed an HR person. Otherwise, you do it yourself, right? Or you have your
Yes.
co-founder do it. So in that stage, I think by definition, entrepreneurship means trying to be lean about your expenses. Now, these AI
Mm.
tools are going to be a great help. Right? So I would say you need to keep experimenting with AI tools. I know people are doing interviews and all, but I don't think it is at the stage where it will replace the human yet. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, if it becomes 4x better in a year, maybe it will, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this is an area where a lot of companies are building tools, right? So I feel you need to keep experimenting and keep seeing whether you can actually utilize these tools, and
Mm-hmm.
where necessary you would bring it up. But I feel that is by definition of entrepreneurship, that is what happens. Even
Right.
earlier, until you needed that HR person or the marketing person, everything was being done by the co-founding team. Then at some
Right.
point you say, is my time well spent doing that, or should I kind of hire somebody to do that so my time can be well spent doing something else? Now with these tools, that time is just extended, right? So I think entrepreneurs don't need to be told how to think about it. I think that successful ones at least would be doing that. They would be conserving resources, and hence they will always use these tools to see, hey, can I get some tool to do stuff that otherwise I would need a person? It gives me more time to do other stuff.
Got it. Got it. Well, on this note, we'll close the session. Thanks for joining us, Anand. Pleasure talking to you. And I personally learned a lot of things about AI, about how technology is changing. And thanks for educating us.
Yeah, Ranjan, my absolute pleasure to chat with you and also to be on your show. Thanks very much. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.